Hello, everyone. We just watched a video on YouTube. I actually don't know if I have permission to share that, through the recording. So I'll just give you it's called The Science of Willpower with Kelly McGonigal, an interview with Kelly McGonigal. And it's the producer is UMNSCSH. That's UMNCSH. So you can find that video on YouTube and watch it, and then come join in on or at least listen in on the discussion that we're about to have. So first I just wanted to kind of start with, did anything really pop out to anyone about that interview and about what she's talking about?
Okay, I'm muted. Just the I want, the will, the won't, and the I want piece of it, and also going back to looking at past successes and kind of, pulling into that and not beating up on yourself of when you do, I mean, there's a lot that she said in here that is really helpful.
Yeah, I think that one about self-compassion really stood out to me too, of like that idea that, like, shaming ourselves, being like, I was bad, I broke the rule, and is actually something that can lead us more to do the things that we are sort of addicted to, or that we're doing impulsively because we are uncomfortable in that place of shame, and so then we want to do something to sort of like comfort ourselves,
Right.
just like, wow, that's so tricky, because that's, I mean, basically, so many different ways of approaching health changes and habit changes do really have this kind of punitive aspect to them, of like you can't cheat, or you can't, like this, I'm good,
Right.
I'm being good today, I'm being bad today, that whole sort of concept of working with it. So what I want to do here is just kind of like run through each of the sort of the topics that she addressed, and then sort of like either we can write on our own, or we can talk about it, just kind of identifying some of the things that for ourselves that she's talking about, just to kind of really, I think that a lot of these learnings are really helpful when we just sort of take a minute to kind of apply them to our own selves and our own lives. When she talked about that, I will, I won't, I want, and she talked about want power being such a really an important part to really having more and more willpower, so really knowing what the goal is, and then being able to assess whether or not what we're doing is in alignment with the goal that we have. One exercise that I've seen to be very helpful with that is an exercise of really identifying what is the want. A lot of times we have like a proximal want, like I want to for some people it's I want to lose 10 pounds, or for other people it's I want to be able to run this 5K. And so what we're going to do is going to go through a little process with that, and it helps to identify the kind of the deeper want that's within that. So first I want to start with just to write, and know that I won't make anybody share anything if you don't want to. But first start with just writing out a health goal, sort of a one-line health goal that you have. And it could be as simple as, I want to read before bed instead of, well, that's not really that simple, instead of using my phone, or, it could be as complex as, I want to, run an Ironman, or I want to reverse my diabetes. But so let's just write out a one line, and it doesn't have to be the one, it can be one of many. So, and then now ask yourself, why do you want that? And do the next level down of so if the thing is, I want to start reading before bed on my phone, maybe the next one would be because I want to get more sleep. And now after we've written that second line of like what's underneath that, then let's just do another why. So why do we want that thing? But if it feels right, you can do one more layer of why. All right. So, anybody want to share anything that came out of that? Anybody?
I guess I'm the anybody.
You are the anybody.
The first thing is, I just want to religiously follow a workout routine.
Mhm.
That's what I want to do on a daily basis. Do a workout routine.
Yep.
You want the next one down? Is that it, or?
If you feel comfortable sharing sort of how that went, yeah.
Well, and then because it will positively affect my overall health is why I want to do it. And then if I go further, because I won't have to be on medications and I will be able to live in my home and be independent as long as I can. So that's why I want to do it.
Yeah, right. This is the big goal, the big thing that you really foresee and envision for your future and what you have to do today to make that happen.
Right.
Mine is a little bit less exciting, but I want to reduce my chocolate intake. I noticed I've been in a state where chocolate is happening every day these days. Is usually I think of it as like a once a week kind of a treat, and it just kind of has sort of expanded into an everyday thing. And I noticed that it affects my sleep sometimes, and sugar, it just does all the things. It makes me feel not as good. And so so my next one was, I want to feel better. And then why do I want to feel better? And I said, I want to be able to connect with and feel playful with Oli. Because sometimes when I'm feeling down or feeling like not as energetic, because I didn't sleep as well, or because I'm just, on a sugar up or down, I just don't feel as playful. I'm not as likely to go say, let's go for a bike ride, or let's go, play baseball, or, pickleball or something. I'm more likely to say hey, okay, let's, reading a book is lovely, but, so I think really just kind of I think it's just such a helpful thing to do that. And it's always just a great, you can see we did that in about 2 minutes. And so anytime that you're sort of setting out on a new health goal or a new process, it's a great thing to just step into why. And very often we get into the future self moment, like you said about, wanting to live independently. And for me, knowing that when I look back on my life, one of the things that's going to be the most important to me is what kind of connection I have with my son, and what that looks like, and also what that feels like for me and for him. And I know that, today the thing that I can do to really support that is taking care of my own health, and including not eating sugar every day. So it's just a good thing to just sort of identify the connection between what you're doing now and the bigger goal. And I do really think that, what she talked about really being able to ask ourselves, does this align with my future self, with my future goals, with my, is a really different answer, is a really different question to ask than, am I being good or am I being bad? You can feel the difference.
Right.
What a big change that is. Because the other thing that I really think about in terms of that difference is that when it's about good and bad, what we're really doing is we're engaging in that parent-child relationship within our own selves. Because being human is complicated. We have all these parts in ourselves. And so, so if we're saying, oh, if I'm going to be good, I have to exercise every day. So, and then that has a parental kind of feeling, you have to do that, and what is it? A kid's natural response to that is to say, I don't want to. No. Exactly. Right. And eventually, as it works out, especially when it's internal, the child, I don't want to, or I'm going to do it anyway, doesn't tends to win out actually at some point, and then if we follow that up with a shame spiral, then now we've really lost track of what we're doing. Where when we are really coming from I want, or from this kind of future, sort of perspective of taking care of our future self, or of doing something today for our future self's benefit, it's really what we're actually accessing is this wise self, this kind of the when I think of the wise self, it's the one that has this kind of like this big picture look at our whole lives and sort of at like what's important, what we value the most, and how do we enact those values. And you know, and the parent-child self, especially the child in that relationship, has the complete opposite to that. It's this 5-second, you know, like view of life, which is like, I want gratification right this second. And with no real concept of, you know, children don't really have that great of a concept of this sort of a full lifetime, or what that really means, or what kind of how the decisions we make today really affect our overall well-being for years to come. So yeah, I think it's really about getting out of that little dynamic there. Like,
right. And also not beating yourself, because there's times, okay, then I don't do it, then you feel bad about not doing it, and then it's like, but
yeah.
you know, like, how do you get out of that dynamic, you know, how to get beyond that? That's, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yep, absolutely. Where you know, really, if you're in that dynamic, it's like, oh, now I'm in trouble because I did that, and I might as well do more bad things because we're in trouble, you know, versus like, if you're in this like kind of, you know, interaction with your bigger goals and everything, then you'll just say, oh, well, you know, today's a new day, I'm going to do it now, you know, like, or I didn't do my workout routine today, this morning, so at least right now I'm going to take a 10-minute walk, you know. You know, it has this little bit of flexibility to it that has like an adaptability, flexibility kind of a thing that sort of like, you should, you know, you should do this. You know, it doesn't really have
Right.
that flexibility to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really, and that's really what I see, you know, kind of witnessing now, you know, I've been in practice for 10 years, watching so many people embark on health changes, is that actually the more self-compassion they give themselves, and the more they are connected to these kind of longer term goals, the more I always say, you know, the path to health is not linear. It's not like, you know, you don't get somewhere and then stay there. It's like, you're always kind of like, you know, you have a path and you're always deviating. And what the difference is that, you know, the goal is to make the detour shorter and less, you know, far off the path, you
Right.
know,
Right.
you know, sometimes the detours are for like 5 years or 10 years, you know, and other times they can be for, you know, 3 days. And so it's just really a matter of how do we get ourselves back onto, you know, sort of like in alignment with our real goals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And definitely that happens faster when we're kind to ourselves. That's for sure. Yeah.
And also having someone, I guess, not accountable, but like, I'll use my niece in Florida, and we do on our Fitbit, not a Fitbit, on our Garmin, and she'll just, like, she's very encouraged. Like, there's times I won't do my 30 minutes and I feel really bad about it. She goes, no, you got there and you did 20 minutes, and that's good, doing a good job. So you sometimes need an outside, you know what I'm saying? Like a buddy to push you forward as well.
Totally, right. And that kind of, actually, they've done studies on that too, like doing things in community and with people that you love, where you're both in the role of being a supporter and also a supportee, you know.
Right.
That's really good, you know. That's you know,
Right.
it's built into so many programs, like the whole, you know, 12-step program has a lot of that built in terms of like, you know, people being mentors, you know, and there's, you know, sponsorships and everything, and just how incredible that is for your own process, that, you know, to be supporting someone else at the same time as you're doing it.
Right.
Really big too. Yeah.
And not judgmental. It's like, oh, you didn't do that. It's like, all right, well, tomorrow's another day. You'll get back on it again, you know?
Yeah,
So.
totally. Yeah. Right. And I've seen people, it kind of turn into like some playful, competition, you know, and then I've seen it also turn into like a really supportive space of being like, oh yeah, you know, like, this is great, I saw that you worked out for 35 minutes today, that's awesome, you know, or
Right.
or, you know, really that kind of like witnessing each other like that, I think is really powerful.
Right.
Yeah. And it just, you know, and no one that you love is going to tell you like, you didn't do that, you know, like the kinds of things that we would tell ourselves inside of ourselves, like, you failed, you're a horrible person, you know, like all the things.
Right. Right.
Yeah, like, it's all lost. Yeah, nobody else is gonna say those things, that's for sure. I mean, I guess hopefully not. Yes. Totally. So and I really liked, I was thinking about Kelly McGonigal, I liked how she defined, you know, willpower as being like doing something that's in line with your highest goals and values, even when some part of you doesn't want to, you know, just that idea of just like sticking with that and being really being loyal to one's own goals and values, even when there's like, things that sort of are pulling away from that. And I think about that in so many places in life. And I just really think about that's like really for me, the definition of integrity is like when we can kind of stay in line with those things, even when there's a lot of other things going on, that sort of might challenge us to stay there. And here, this one was another quote of hers that I really wanted to pull out, is that we believe that who we really are is the one who wants indulgence. So we kind of like, we sort of like, I over-identify with the one who's like wanting this indulgence, when actually really, like, we looked at like, the average over our whole lifespan, actually really what she was implying by saying that was that who we really are is the one who wants to keep living and to have a wonderful life, and to really, to have a life that is worth living, and that is, that is, full of love and joy and connection and all the things that that people really, strive for. And the one who wants indulgence is like a small part of who we are, but it's really not like the overarching. And I think that when I think about that statement, I think about how so much of it comes from advertising. Advertising really tells us that over and over again, that we're the one who wants indulgence. And I think that that's not a mistake, because a lot of people would make different choices about, we were talking about that earlier, about like buying things and everything, if we were sort of like from this bigger perspective of like how, really literally asking ourselves, like, before we bought something, how does this serve me? And is this something I really want to do with my time or my money or my, or to ingest in any way. So yeah, I think that was just a really important thing to bust that myth of like, actually, like, what do we really want in life? Yeah, it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Not focusing on the indulgent piece of it, that's who you are. It's a different mindset.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Actually, so when she had a TED talk. It sounds like you listened to the TED talk too.
Yes.
There was ways that I actually ended up with this, using this interview, because it kind of just hit all of the points that I really wanted to address. But but I like that when the whole part in the beginning about how they did that thing with stimulating the parts of, they did with rats and with people, and stimulating the parts of their brain that made them keep doing that same thing, and like they would keep doing it even if they were, like, even despite like having to walk across like a really hot thing. And they basically, with the rats, they assumed that it was a pleasure response that they were getting from that stimulation of that part of the brain. And then once they were doing it on people, they realized that it actually wasn't pleasure, that it was actually this sort of like feeling of like this anticipation of something being good, but it never quite getting there. So it actually was like a feeling of frustration. And it was really, I thought it was really amazing to hear about that, because it was like, oh wow, like this is what kind of motivates us towards those indulgences, is that, or I hate that word, that word indulgence is complicated, but towards those things that give us that immediate gratification, because there's a sense or a belief that like that joy is just over that, like just over that thing. If I just buy myself that one nice thing, then I'll feel happy. Or I'll if I just eat that other thing that but actually the real feeling is frustration, because it never quite gets there. It never quite actually does that thing. And
so you overindulge again because you're frustrated because you didn't do that.
Yep.
And it's a vicious cycle.
Totally right, which is where you get addiction, like that. That is the essence of addiction. And so really what they were studying, without realizing so much that they were studying it, was addiction, and how that works. And I think, using the word addiction in a very broad sense, anything that we do that we do repetitively, that isn't actually in line with our bigger life goals, isn't, we can think of that as addiction, like whether that's, scrolling on social media and staying up late and not getting enough sleep, or whether that's, buying things, or even spending time around people who we don't feel so good being around. Anything that we're just kind of doing repetitively that isn't really serving us so well. So yeah, there's a great book by Russell Brand about addiction, kind of in a big general sense. he uses a lot of curse words for anybody who that is not ideal for. But he does a really great sort of like deep dive into addiction and addiction in our culture and addiction and just addressing addiction in our own lives. Through using the 12 steps, but his kind of like version of the 12 steps, which is actually pretty funny. He kind of rewrote them in a funny way. Anything that you wanted to say about all that?
No, it's as I said, it was a short clip, but it covered a lot of the key points, which was, I'm going to want to listen to it again. Yeah. And then it came back to the mindfulness, and we were talking about that before. Everything comes back to that meditation and staying in the moment kind of thing. So that was interesting how that piece pulls into it as well.
Isn't it wild? Like I've heard people talk about mindfulness practice as being something where you're literally like figuring out how to train your own flashlight. You know, like if you have a flashlight of attention, you're actually learning how to specifically train, like put it on whatever you want it to be on, so that it isn't getting just sort of like, thrown about and
right
everything around you. And I really like, personally, I feel like that's really true, is it just lets you kind of really be conscious about what choices you're making in a moment, about
right
your time, energy, attention, and all of that.
And it's the same thing of it, because it's hard to keep that attention. Again, not realizing how much the thoughts go off and from what you're trying to do. But they too say, be kind to yourself. It's okay. It's going to take time to do, to get yourself to being mindful of the moment, So I can see how that would work in terms of trying to reach your goal of keeping the focus.
Yeah. Which actually that makes me think about that this totally translates to habit change too, is that one time I was listening to somebody who was talking about meditation. They were talking about how actually, like quote unquote bad meditating is actually the best practice, because you get the most practice. Like the whole practice of meditation is to practice bringing your attention back. And so if you're getting distracted a lot, you just get, it's like doing a lot of repetitions. If you're weightlifting, you'd be doing like a lot of reps,
Right.
Oh, there we go. I mean, I've had days where I go sit to meditate and I'm like, wow, that was like, I don't think I did it for more than like 3 seconds, in a row. But then I just loved that perspective, because it was like, oh wow, that was really an effective, like, training session, because I had to keep doing it, right? Like I couldn't get there and stay there. And I think that's really true for habit change as well, is like the more I talk about sometimes about, that whole thing about the path, of like finding your way back to the path, or is that you end up, if you've done it a lot, if you've kind of like detoured and come back, you end up kind of creating like a well-worn path that's easy to follow. You're right. Like, I know how to do this, and really, like, people know how to do it. They're like, oh, I know that if I'm really off here, I need to, like, just take 3 days and make myself a really nice soup and, plan a walk with a friend, and that gets me back on track, and for other people it's something completely different, but just that, like, sort of, how good it is to wear a path back to so maybe we're just practicing when we take our detour.
That's it. We're doing our reps.
Yeah. The other thing that I just really came out was this kind of like really touching base with a future memory, and some of the ones that I can't remember if I read about them in her book or if it was from I did this other workshop where we did some work about like future self connection, but was thinking about like being at like an 80th birthday, or a 70th birthday, or whatever, kind of a birthday that you can imagine, and really just like fully picturing it, sort of fully picturing like what it feels like to have that community around, but also too, like, what, as you look back on your life, what's going to be really the most important things, and what are you going to feel really grateful for, both things that you did as well as things that happened for you, and just that kind of like, I really love that view of a future self looking back has built into it all of that self-compassion, because that future self gets to be like, I see your struggles, I see how hard it was for you to do that exercise routine every day, and like to get through that, all the blocks around that, but you did it, and thank you, for sticking with it, because of that we get to have this, we get to have this life that is happening right now, And I do, I mean, I think about that a lot, even just in terms of like, you know, thinking about my past self, even from right now, you know, like in my 40s, I can look back and say like, wow, you know, that I really appreciate myself, you know, having done all of that work to get
Mhm.
here. And so I get to do the work that I love. And actually, when I was in medical school, I had this whole relationship with my future self before I even heard anything about this literature, but it was around student loans, you know, so I had student loans, and I would actually very specifically, like when I would like, you know, go get groceries or something, I would think to myself, like, thank you, future self, you know, like, thanks for taking care of me, you know, so that I can do this, so I can do this studies. And even as I pay my student loans, I think to myself, like, okay, here you go, past self, you know, like I've got you covered, you know, you're all set. um, and it is kind of like the sweet, it was like a sweetness that happened there of really knowing that like that my future self would be grateful for my past self having done that, and also that now as my future self in that context, that really, you know, that I really feel glad to support my past self in going to school, because now I get to do the work that I love to do. And so
Mhm.
gladly supporting her, you know, yeah. Even when she wants to get squishy every once in a while. Yeah. Yeah. Um, so yeah, I like, you know, in terms of the self-compassion piece, that when that line that she said about setbacks don't reflect that you're more screwed up, or that you're screwed, you know, that you're really messed up. I like that. It was just like, oh yeah, that was definitely a place where my thoughts go. Like, oh man, you know, this just proves that I'm failing at this. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, anything else that you wanted to sort of, you know, add or wrap up with, or?
No, I'm fine.
Cool, right on. Thank you so much for coming. And yeah, I think this was an interesting one. And also too, oh, I wanted to say too that this book is actually really, if you want to do a deeper dive on the work that she does, it's The Willpower Instinct. It's a really good book, and I'm happy to lend it to anyone that would be interested too. So wonderful. I hope that you have a great rest of your day. It's good to see
You
you.
too.
For
Take
coming.
care. Bye-bye.